brings authors who write stories of hope to all of you. Your journey to be inspired and amplified by these stories starts now.
And we are back. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, Amy, for being a guest here tonight. So let's open it up. Amy, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to chat with you and everybody else tonight. So, my name is Amy Tyson, and I am a mom here in Frisco, Texas. And I'm one of those individuals that has been divorced twice. And just to let people know, I've chosen to take what I've been through and use that to truly help other individuals that are going through the journey of the divorce or splitting of their family. And so I have the heart knowledge and I have the book knowledge, and I'm just on a mission to help families as much as I can.
That is a great thing because unfortunately it has happened to many families, but there is a way that we can work through this. And so you'll see running on the ticker underneath there, contact information to get a hold of Amy. And it looks like we have a few people popping up here live. Thank you, Bruce, for popping in and sharing tonight. Go out there and share this live broadcast with everyone. And we would love to see you pop up here and ask questions. If it seems like something that we can really use for the show, we'll throw it up there and see if Amy can answer those questions live. All great. Thank you so much, Bruce, and everyone else for being a part of the podcast tonight. So, Amy, you have written a book called One Princess, Two Castles. So, share a little bit about that book.
Sure. So, like I said earlier, I've been through 2 divorces. And when I was going through my first divorce many, many years ago, I had been a teacher and was then a stay-at-home mom. And to be honest, my 2 little girls were my world. And so my biggest concern was how I was going to have that discussion with them and break that news to them. And I just really did not know how to go about that. And so at the time, I reached out to my local church and they loaned me a book. And I had their dad meet us at this park in a treat area. And of all things, I laid out this princess blanket. And it kind of comes full circle later on, but they were 4.5 and 7.5. And to be just bluntly honest, they hated the day, which all children are not going to enjoy that day because there's so many unknowns. There's a lot of fears, and in their mind and their world is completely crumbling. So they obviously did not like the day, but to make matters worse, I was not able to soften that blow. And it just devastated me because that's what I wanted so badly to do, was to soften that blow somehow for them. And so just remember, they were 4.5 and 7.5. So years and years later, I have now left a second marriage, and I'm not even looking at how to tell my youngest little girl. I now had a third little girl who was 5. And I was just like so many going through a divorce. I was in survival mode, feeling like just a complete failure. Because in my mind at the time, I thought, who goes through 2 divorces? Not realizing how common that was. And I just remember I was in the middle of folding laundry, and all of a sudden, the phrase "one princess, 2 castles" comes into my head. And it was just clear as day. And at the time, I remember thinking, this is very strange. I mean, because I literally was in the middle of folding laundry. And it was so clear to me and so strange. I just remember stopping what I was doing and writing it down on a little scrap of paper and putting it in a silver box. And I didn't do anything with it, thought nothing of that phrase for the longest time. And finally, months and months and months go by, and it is now time. I have got to tell my youngest daughter that her dad and I will not be staying together. And there's double the pressure on me because A, I felt like a complete failure already, but B, my oldest daughters, who at the time when I told them that their father and I were getting a divorce, were 4.5 and 7.5, at this point are now almost out of high school and almost entering high school. Still very much remembered the day I told them. Still very much remembered the book that I used, all with very negative emotions. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, if a book has this much power over a child this many years later, I've really got to get it right this time. And so at that point, I reached out to my youngest daughter's school counselor asking if she had a book, and she didn't have one on hand, but she recommended one on Amazon. And so I ordered it, and it comes in while all of my girls are at school. And I just remember feeling like I have got to really hone in and focus on this book because I so desperately wanted to get the conversation right this time. And so I remember going into my bedroom, closing the door, even though I was home alone, just needing to just completely focus, sitting on the floor across from my nightstand with this book in my lap, just staring at the title and just being put off is the only way I know how to describe it. And I thought, no, Amy, you've got to read this book because it's been recommended to you and you've got to get it right this time. So I start to read through the book and I just shut it because I knew this was not the way to go about it, or at least not the way I wanted to tell my own little girl. And at that point, I wasn't thinking about the millions of other children potentially that are going through the splitting of their family. I was only thinking about my youngest daughter. My oldest one's new, and I just knew I needed a better way to tell her. So at that point, to be honest, I got up and I walked over and threw the book in the trash. And I sat down at this desk where I'm sitting right now, and I wrote the book, One Princess, Two Castles, which is a book that so many family law firms across the state of Texas now carry as a resource for when a client retains them for a divorce, a modification, or a SAPSR involving young children, and to help facilitate that conversation. And so when I wrote this book for my own little girl, I wanted a way to talk about the emotions in a divorce, not so much the mechanics of it. And I wanted to give her little heart permission to hurt, but at the same time, I wanted to give her an unapologetic permission to feel very excited about spending time with both her father and I, regardless of what was going on. I wanted her to be able to feel excited and also share that excitement with both her dad and I. And I also wanted to have a phrase that she could focus on for the good. And that is, things will be different, but things will be good, because different doesn't have to always mean bad. Different can be scary at times. That is for sure. But I am a firm believer that even in those darkest of times, those hardest of times, that something good can come from that if you look hard enough. And so that is part of my mission, to help so many parents and their children find happiness in the midst of their heartache. And when I wrote the book, One Princess, Two Castles, and obviously I used that phrase that came into my head so many months before when I was in the middle of folding laundry. And when I talked about things coming full circle, remember when I told my older girls when they were little bitty during my first divorce, we were sitting on a princess blanket. And so I just feel like everything has come full circle, and I never could have planned it this way. But going back to the book, when I wrote the book for my little 5-year-old, I didn't put the word divorce in it. And that is because I feel like the word divorce is much too strong of a word for a young child. And when I went to publish the book, I still didn't add the word divorce in for reason number one, but also reason number two. We know that there are many families that they are not legally married. And I don't doubt that the splitting of their family affects those two adults and those children any differently than it does someone that's married. And I wanted to help as many children as possible. And so the idea behind the book is that when a mom or dad or both parents sit down with a child, they actually have a resource with colored, beautiful, very realistic pictures to walk them through that discussion, and to also have a resource that the child can refer back to throughout the years, because children heal on a very different timeline than adults. That's just the way it works a lot of the time. And I've also found that it gives a lot of these children a character that they can really identify with, because we know that the splitting of a family is really common, but it's also very difficult. But this story shows a child, a princess, that's gone through something incredibly difficult, incredibly common, but has come out on the other side truly for the better. And that's what I want to get across to these parents and these children, and to help them to co-parent in a healthy way.
The co-parenting is just so vital because the child loves both parents.
Mhm.
And I think what's so common, so hard and tragic is when one pits the other, or the children get pitted or used as pawns. It's just really sad because the depths of those scars and trauma last well through their whole lifetime. So if we can show some hope, even when maybe the marriage has to have that split, or the relationship has to have the split and children are involved, the idea for both adults to come to the table and be adults
Mhm.
first and try to remember that it's the family, that light and hope within those children, to still love and help. So you said that different can still be good. So
Mhm.
share a little bit about how your daughter responded to this whole concept.
Sure. So let me go back really quick to the co-parenting because I'm really, really passionate about that. I really do believe, here's the thing: you figured out how to have a child, you better figure out how to co-parent. And that's just the way that it is. And co parenting doesn't end the day the child turns 18, nor does it end the day the last child support check is written or received. It is a lifetime situation. And the easier you can make it on your child, the better it's going to be for generations to come. I believe that part of loving your child is helping them to love their other parents. So that's where I stand on co-parenting. So I wanted to lay that out there because I do know that it can be very difficult for people at times. Co-parenting is not always easy, but co-parenting is always worth it. As far as things being different, but things will be good. I was one of those moms that we really completely started over from scratch pretty much. And that's not that uncommon. I think that a lot of people just don't discuss that. And I was someone that I wasn't willing to um, sacrifice my family for a lifestyle, if that makes sense. I was on a mission to create a healthy family and a healthy environment, and it was going to be happy no matter if we had a lot or we had a little. And so we were one of those families that we lived at one point in a very, very large home. And then going through the divorce, my daughters and I moved into an apartment. And so my high schooler, and let's see, she was going into ninth grade, and my youngest was in kindergarten, and they shared a room with just a nightstand in between their beds. And although I'm sure it wasn't the most enjoyable thing at times, they never complained growing up. And then when my oldest daughter would come home, she and I would share the bedroom in there. And so we learned to have a very happy home in a small apartment. And you just become very thankful for the things that you do have, and working hard to make that different good, whatever that looks like, whether it's where you're living, whether it's what you're able to buy, where you're able to go. And we just really worked hard to focus on that quality time. And a lot of that meant finding things to do that didn't cost money.
So give us an example, just off the top of your head, on some of those quality family times that didn't cost a lot of money. What
Oh,
did you guys
sure.
do?
Yeah. So for my youngest daughter, we would do little camp outs in our den. And so I remember I went to Target and they had the little dollar spot, and I bought, it was $5, and it was a plush, like a stuffed campfire for $5. And then, we don't have a fireplace in an apartment, or at least we don't. And so I looked online, I think on Pinterest, and I figured out how to do s'mores in the oven. And we slept on the floor, with blankets and pillows. And we had the little stuffed campfire in the middle, and we made our s'mores. And it was very, very minimal cost, but it was just really good quality time. And then I know, like, one time during Halloween, we had this Halloween decoration. It was a jack-o'-lantern that lit up. and I lit it and we read Halloween stories. And then I painted her nails like orange and black, not going to the nail salon, doing it here. And again, very minimal cost. Another thing that we did, and we still do today a lot, we do little skating chats. And so she has a pair of skates. They actually, the rollers or the wheels, they glow in the dark, and they were expandable skates. So these same skates have lasted for years. So they grow with the child. And so I would hold her hand and I would walk and she would skate, and we would just talk about anything and everything. And it's just being very intentional on taking the time to spend with your child and communicating and doing those fun things that don't involve technology, don't involve necessarily getting out of the house, or at least going very far.
That's very, very true. The simple things that involve time really make the difference. Just simple things. The other night, my son, he wanted to do a quick game. So we set up a quick challenge course. We've got a large kind of a love sack. I said, I bet you can't run and launch from here to land on it. Oh, challenge was on. And running and jumping on the love sack.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, completely free. How much time? And then he's like, can we do this every night? And I'm like, sure, we can do the love sack challenge. Simple. And it is the time. I think so many kids, so many families, in just the busyness of life, we have to take that time to reconnect in the best and silly ways. And it makes it really fun.
Yes.
So within your book, how does the story open?
So it opens by, it starts talking about kind of the history of the family and what they do. It's a family that they love to feed wild animals and they love to help people. And it was very much, I tried to intertwine different things that we had done as a family into the story. And so much so that when I read it to my own little girl, it was only on printer paper. It didn't have illustrations back then. And it was how I told her that her dad and I were not going to be staying together. And about the end of the story, she said, Mommy, I'm Princess T, aren't I? And I said, you are. But the story begins by talking about the different things that the family does as a family. And then it takes it through that all of a sudden there's a change. And the mom and the daughters are moving to one castle, and the dad is moving to another castle. And the youngest princess starts to go back and forth between the two castles. And the mom and the dad have dialogues with her about that.
Interesting. And I think it is really profound that when families do have to meet with lawyers, and this is a recommended resource now, the concept of having a conversation that really is a conversation and not a shouting or a blaming, it's very, very helpful, because how you set up this part of the life really can continue. And if you make a mistake in it, go back, you can fix things. It's not set in stone, but it will be if you don't keep trying and fixing. Right?
Oh, 1,000%. Because number one, I'm a firm believer that the way a divorce or split of a family is handled not only affects those two adults, not only affects those child or children if there's more than one, but generations to come quite often. Because a lot of the time it's monkey see, monkey do. Oh, this is how mom and dad handled their breakup. This is how I handle mine. Then those children then have children, and it just continues on. And that's gotten us to where our world is today. And it truly does not have to be that way. And maybe you are the individuals and your divorce is already final, and it was just a very difficult divorce. Well, a very difficult divorce does not have to end in difficult co-parenting forever and ever and ever. If you put in the work, both of you, and you really work together, it can truly change over time. And sometimes it's going to be one person working a lot harder, especially at the beginning. And you just don't give up, because you have to keep your eye on what's the most important thing, and that is your child, and you owe it to your child. Bottom line.
Right. And I love what you said. So like 18's not the cutoff date.
No, well, because people don't think about this. I think they're like, oh, my divorce is final, or oh, my child's graduating. I don't have to see this person anymore or talk to him. I'm just done. But the reality is, your child could very likely have college graduations. They could have their own children, marriages, special events, things like that, and holidays. And why would you make their lives more difficult? And if you can't figure out how to co-parent, you're purposely making their lives more difficult. That's just the
Yeah.
bottom line. So you really do need to do your best to try to work together. And a lot of the times that'll mean finding a divorce or a co-parenting coach to help you walk through how to examine the different journeys and paths you can go before you send that text, before you send that email. Really think it through. And sometimes there are couples, or one of the people from the couple, that really does need a coach to help figure out who they are and how to co-parent so that they and their child has a better life going forward.
Yes, I will say, as a teacher, I see often many co-parenting or lack of co-parenting that can happen, and many of the students that I work with have really intense special needs, and so there's more complexities with that. There are a few that I'm like, "Can I just put a spotlight on you, please?" This this is very helpful and supportive, and I know it takes humility to swallow down that pride, right? And to remember, wait, we're here at this meeting for who? Oh, yeah, for Johnny, for
Mhm.
Anna, for
Mhm.
whomever. And they are that world that is a part of your world. And I love in that future, wouldn't it be nice at their future wedding that both can sit and have a peaceful day, and the bride or the groom doesn't have to have this concerning worry, well, what if this will happen, you have to think beyond the moment.
Mhm.
And it is challenging when the families can't stay together, but if that happens, make the co-parenting through the lifetime part of your lifetime.
Right.
All right. Well, awesome, Amy. So tell us where we can get a copy of this book.
Sure. So you can get a copy of my book, One Princess, Two Castles, and it's right here. And you can also get a copy of my newest resource, which is called Little Hearts, Big Feelings. It's a journal specifically for children going through the journey of divorce. It gives them targeted prompts, and they actually draw out their feelings to those prompts. And you can get both of those via my website. It's happinessintheheartache.com. And you can also reach me at happinessintheheartache@gmail.com if you're interested in speaking engagements or podcasts or anything else.
Awesome. And so make sure you connect with her through that website. We have it running on the ticker underneath us tonight. It is really important that if you know someone, whether it is your family or a friend or maybe a different family member, the concept really is to help the health of whatever can be left of that family to the best possible way. And humility and apologizing and remembering where the focus is really helps to bring that hope and light within the situation that you might find yourself in. Patience, I'm sure, is a big part of this. Would you agree, Amy?
Oh, 1,000%. It's always a work in progress, always.
I agree. So if you are interested, please go ahead and grab that book from Amy Tyson. Remember, it's happinessintheheartache.com. And we just welcome you to come to visit what her mission is. And as a coach, she can also help. And can you share with us that Gmail again?
Sure. It's happinessintheheartache@gmail.com, and I can coach individuals in person and virtually.
Awesome. Thank you again, Amy. And if you have any last kind of points of light that you would love to share with us before we close it up, the floor is yours.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. Well, we all know it's not a matter of if, a matter of when. Heartache will strike your life at some point. And so I want to encourage you that even in those darkest of times, and I know that it's hard, something good can come from that if you look hard enough. And through those times, you may very likely be able to help somebody else with what you've been through. So keep your chin up. And if you need help finding happiness in the midst of your heartache, reach out to me. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, Amy. And thank you all who have joined us here live tonight. We're very happy that you were able to share and spread this message of hope and light. Again, tune in next week on the Tuesday night for the Beacon of Light podcast. And thank you for sharing and amplifying your light with us tonight. Thank you, everybody. We'll see ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.